Hello, everyone. Thank you and welcome to the Info-Huddle today. My name is Mohini. I'm a part of the HR team at Faxpan Analytics. We are a data and AI company. We help global enterprises and product companies to collect, store, and manage their complex and varied data structures, identify patterns and trends, and build analytical model to analyze and deliver business outcomes. Today, we have come together to discuss the role of data engineering and data governance in the age of generative AI. For that, I have two experts with me who are the leaders from our company who will be throwing lights on the aspects of managing the impacts of generative AI. We'll be primarily focusing on the profound impact of generative AI, its potential to unleash chaos, and most importantly, exploring the pivotal role that data governance and data engineering play in maintaining the order and control. All right. So I'm super excited for this conversation ahead. And I'd like to inform that you guys can also interact with us through the Q&A section. And now is the time for me to introduce our esteemed panel, starting with Shailesh Kumar. Shailesh is an esteemed senior manager in the company who has also been a driving force in the data governance wing in the Faxpan. In his 9 years of work experience, he has navigated through diverse domains of retail, finance, supply chain, healthcare, aviation, and whatnot. We're so delighted to have you with us, Shailesh. Please tell us a bit more about you.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Mohini, for the lovely introduction. So basically, it's a pleasure to be here on the show, and I'm super excited. So firstly, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of them who have joined. So we are super excited for the session. So we can't wait to share our insights about the role of data governance in the age of generative AI. So to talk a bit about myself, right? So I have deep roots in music. I enjoy composing music. I enjoy singing, dancing. I have close inclination towards art, dance as well. So I have I've got a chance to create some music albums. And yeah, I think I have a lot of passion towards music, so that keeps me going. And coming to the other side of things, or the sporty side of things, I enjoy doing yoga and meditation. That helps me to connect to my soul. So I think this is a few things that I enjoy doing. And yeah, that's a bit about myself.
Must say that you have quite a diverse personality, Shailesh. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now it's time for us to introduce another remarkable expert we have. Let's welcome Ashok Kutty. Ashok is also a senior manager in the company, and he's also leading the wing of data governance and data engineering in Faxpan. In his more than 10 years of work experience, he has maintained a strong track record of collaborating with clients in data-driven technology consulting sector, especially in BFSI, retail, and travel. Thank you for being here, Ashok. Could you also share some more information about you?
Thank you, Mohini, for the wonderful introduction. Good morning and good evening to everyone, and thanks for joining this session. Yeah, I think I like working in the space, data engineering, data analytics, to be precise. I find it really challenging, the opportunities that I get. It keeps me motivated. And on the personal front, as Shailesh said, I'm also into sports. I like the competition that sports brings in. I feel it keeps me motivated. So I play tennis, I play table tennis, I play cricket. So that is from the sporty side of things. And I like to travel as well. So I think I find peace in exploring new places. Yeah, so that's about me.
Mm-hmm. So I couldn't help but notice the common interest that you guys have towards sports and games. Probably that explains the synergy you guys create while working together. Yeah, right. Okay, so we are off to a great start. And I must say that there is a lot that we can gain from your experience and your expertise. There is immense value that you can add to today's conversation. But guys, you guys are also recommended to stay focused and engaged with us, because there will be a poll question shortly, which you can answer. All right, so I am ready to ask the first and most important question to my panel of experts here. We are parallelly launching a poll question for you now. You just have 15 seconds to answer. So hurry up and make sure you answer, because our experts will be circling back to the question. All right. So the question that we are displaying for them on screen is, in era of Gen AI with advancements happening, do you think the future generation will have a job? Okay, let them answer. So here I'll start with Ashok first. Ashok, the first question that we have is, why do you guys think this topic, chaos to control, is in the generative era, is so important and relevant?
Yeah, so we did not sell AI or GenAI to anyone. It's already been sold. So, but it brings in a lot of options for innovation. And it also brings certain amount of unpredictability, which can be closely related to the chaos aspect of things. So it is really important to understand how to navigate the transition between the chaos part and how we can control this. Mm-hmm. So as to ensure that the critical AI systems are developed and it is deployed sustainably. I think that is why this topic is very important.
Absolutely. Well, so moving on to Shailesh. Shailesh, the next question that I have for you is, what are the disruptions caused by generative AI in multiple fields and industries?
Okay, sure. So before we get into the answer for that, so probably I can think about a quote, with great power comes great responsibility. I think that is so very apt in this particular situation and scenario. Where we have a superpower called generative AI, and it has completely taken the world by storm. So you pretty much see so many news that you see on the, on the media, and there is so much of disruption that's being done in every single field and aspect of it. So yeah, I think we have a huge responsibility as well. I think, we have a superpower. So, we need to make sure that it is used in the right context, to make sure that we use it in the right way and the right sense, right? Mm-hmm. So that is where the responsibility comes in as, as humanity, as humans, we need to make sure that we use the technology in the right sense. So to talk a few applications or the disruptions. So one thing that I can think about is on the content creation side. It is completely disrupted and it has completely changed the game, for the content creators. So something that used to take 20 to 30 different days to create a small content, with the Gen AI tools, you could pretty much do it in 15 to 20 seconds or 20 minutes, in fact. So the kind of impact is huge. So the content creation is another big piece. And coming to the marketing side of it, so you could probably, create blogs, you could create text, videos, images. Basically, you can, create multiple different aspects of marketing. You can create a whole new marketing plan. Or if you want to start a new business, basically you have all the tools at your disposal to get started. And I think that's a huge aspect or like a value add to a lot of companies. So basically they spend a lot of money to hire such folks. And it has increased so much of productivity. And I think, the companies see a huge value and potential with, the rise of Gen AI applications. The next field that I can think about is on the art generation, right? So who would have thought in the wildest of dreams that, you could probably, have your imaginations into the forefront and you could just, with a few prompts, you can pretty much generate something as awesome as anything that you think. So something that, it has taken the world by storm, and it is completely going to change the game, how the filmmaking is going to be made, and the animation industry, the VFX industry. Mm-hmm. So all of these industries are going to be hugely disrupted or impacted from this. So, I'm pretty sure you guys would have heard about the Hollywood strikes that are happening. I think that's pretty prominent in the news. So there are jobs being taken away because of the advancement of AI. So you can pretty much scan a person as a background actor. You're just paying like $200 and then boom, you're done. You don't need to pay him, and you could use his presence for every single application that you would like to use him. So there is a good side, there is a bad side. With every technology, there is always a good side and a bad side. So basically, that is where data governance comes in to make sure that we control this entire aspect, and we have some kind of a process around it. So that is the reason why data governance has gained so much of traction, and that is here to stay. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So definitely, it has two sides. Yep. There are two sides to this coin, and it's crucial that we focus on both of them. Absolutely. Right? Yep. I'd like to focus on the positive part that you've mentioned here, that there will be an increase in productivity by multiples. Absolutely. And if it has to be a scary scenario, which we anticipate these days, that probably is also for good, because it's going to pave a way for our evolution. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So, and in fact, this topic is closely related to the poll question that we had rolled out for our audience. So let us see what are their sentiments towards it. Can we please have the results shown? So this is what people are saying.
Yeah, I think interesting. I think most of the audience agree. And I also agree with the audience in this case. Yeah. Yes, there will be jobs for us. There is a lot of uncertainty around the future landscape, especially from an employment standpoint. Yeah.
Yes, what our kids are saved. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they will have a job in the future. Yeah. So that's definitely
that definitely will be the case. Yeah. So yes, there will be a disruption because that is going to happen. Yes, there is going to be labor displacement. But let us think it from a different perspective. Let's back in 1940s, right? The job that we do right now was not even conceived. They could not have think about it, right? So at that point of time, there was a shift in the industrial standard, there was a shift in technology landscape, and people were required to upskill themselves. They upskilled themselves. They made sure that they're up to that level, and they got the job. I think the history is going to repeat itself. And AI will definitely cause disruptions, but it will also open up a lot of avenues for new innovation, new employment opportunities. I think, yeah, that's
absolutely. Yeah. So the cycle keeps on going.
Yeah.
And what you just mentioned, Ashok, that actually gives us a breath of relaxation, because honestly, there's too much chaos that's pretty much evident everywhere. Okay. So moving on to the next question, which is for Ashok. Why has generative AI become such a trending topic?
I think generative AI has become the buzzword due to popularity of the OpenAI services like ChatGPT, DALL-E, and I think Google has also got Bard. So like examples that Shailesh was talking about in terms of disruptions, right? People are trying to explore those things. People want to explore how they're going to impact the change in using these tools. So that is from a personal front. From a technology perspective, from an enterprise perspective, I think everyone is looking to improve the productivity, operational efficiency, and stuff like that. To think of a use case, I think the best example is healthcare.
Yeah.
I think generative AI will enable the researchers to design more effective clinical trials. I think disease diagnosis will become very prominent. AI can help analyzing disease using medical images and stuff like that. Also, from a socio-economic standpoint, I think generative AI is going to impact and increase the global GDP by almost 7%. I think that is one of the studies from the Goldman Sachs that they released. 2/3 of the current occupation that we have is going to be automated. So I think that is sort of a eye opener, and people are interested and people are scared. Both things are there. So that is why this is a trending topic at this point of time.
Well, you definitely gave us some powerful facts to digest so quickly, Ashok. This actually leads to the next question also that we have. In the times of today, all the enterprises want to harness the power of generative AI.
Right.
So how do you think generative AI is changing the current landscape in data engineering?
I think I'll probably step back a bit. Data engineering in general has undergone a lot of transformation. So in the early 2000s, we were relying on on-prem data services. There were database administrators who used to take care of things. And most of the analysis used to happen with spreadsheets. With the advent of internet, I think there was a lot of data that was thrown in, and people started to realize that the data that we have is completely unstructured and it is completely scattered. It led to the requirement of a more centralized storage and introduction of data modeling. That is where the data warehousing concepts came in. As the time progressed, I think digitalization was the norm. People tried to realize the importance of having the data and understand the value of data. There was greater collaboration between the technical side and greater collaboration with the business sides. They used the data to drive insights and bring business decisions out of it. So at this point of time, with the rising demand, the traditional IT role was not able to manage the scale of the requirement. So that is where I think the ETL, the structured ETL approach came in, It led to the automation and data pipeline creation, stuff like that. And with the advent of social media, the amount of data that was dumped was really crazy.
Yeah.
And that led to the requirement of processing the data at runtime. We saw the evolution of cloud databases, a lot of innovation around the big data space. I think every organization wanted to have an internal data analytics team so as to process this data. And at this point of time, in today's age, we are in a place where almost every application has been migrated into cloud. And they're moving towards a ELT sort of an approach. The architecture are mostly mixed bag of tools. They're not relying on one tool, thanks to the open source technology that we have. And we are actually moving towards the data operation side of things. So that, I mean, previously, which was the automation stuff, which was on ad hoc basis, now it has become the norm. So with the advent of AI, I think this is going to take it to the next level. Okay. So there are some use cases that I can think of, particularly from a coding standpoint. I think ChatGPT has changed the game altogether. It has made it very easy to code, be it an SQL code or be it any complex Python code. It just, you have to type it and it gives you the answer. I think I can also see use cases where a developer asks for a boilerplate data pipeline code, and ChatGPT just gives it. All you have to do is provide the input, what is the source, what is the target, and then there you go. You have the data pipeline available. And it also brings in value to the quality check aspect of things. I think the data quality has always been an issue that every enterprise and every data engineering team is facing. I think with the advent of ChatGPT, I think this has made it a lot easier. Reduction on the reliance of actual production data. I think with the synthetic data generating capabilities of generative AI, I think we can validate our hypotheses, we can validate our pipelines, whatnot, on the go. So the project like data migration from an on-prem to cloud, data engineers' job has become easier. With this concept, the automation of the data ingestion things becomes a lot easier. So is the case for the dashboarding projects. You can create a prototype, front-end prototype. You need not wait for the data, actual data, to test these things. The synthetic data generator can actually create, and then you can validate and test the flow in general. So I think that is how it is going to impact data engineering in a very positive way.
Right. So this is definitely going to be life made easy with its own challenges. And sounds like there's a huge potential from which the data experts could gain from, provided they get on the track of upskilling themselves before the technology is smarter than them, right? So how do we actually do that? And to be precise, Ashok, how data engineers will need to evolve their skills and approaches to effectively work with and harness the power of these technologies?
Yeah, I think from a upskilling standpoint, with the current scheme of things in the AI specific things, generative AI specific things, they need to have a strong understanding. Data engineers need to have a strong understanding of generative AI, the underlying principle, how the LLM works, all those things. So the techniques and algorithms they need to be aware of. I think the second thing is with the scale of processing and computing at this age, data engineers should also be aware of computing concepts like parallel processing and distributed processing and stuff like that. This will actually help them to handle or help the data pipeline that they create to handle large scale data and deliver real time and generate real time solutions so that their data pipeline is sustained and it is up to performance is up to the mark. And third and most important thing is I think the overlap with data governance will increase. At this point of time, we have a reasonable amount of overlap with the data governance, but with the advent of generative AI and with all the issues with biasing and stuff like that, I think they need to operate very closely with the data governance around the policies, how they should work around and stuff like that. I think these are the areas where they have to scale up. I think, I think that is about it.
Okay, great. Well, those are definitely some interesting insights that you've shared. And I'm sure that all of these concepts are way deeper than we have just discussed. And if required, we can pick and elaborate them separately in our upcoming platforms. We never know.
Yeah.
All right. So coming back to Shailesh, having heard all the things that Ashok has just mentioned, please help us understand how the overlap of data engineering and data governance will help us and why it is required.
Sure. So yeah, I think data governance is here to stay. I think data governance is definitely a very underrated field I think that is definitely going to take a lot of traction in the upcoming years to come. So before we understand the applications of data governance, so let's first understand what is the concept of data governance, how it has evolved. So let us first understand the evolution of it, so that at least we can appreciate how the data governance is going in the future. So data governance was not a separate entity. Like a few years back, data governance was an integral part of the data engineering space. So there was no such entity. The data engineers, they were pretty much responsible for the data quality. They were responsible for the ingestion. They were responsible for the cataloging. They were responsible for loading the data. So basically, they owned everything. So that proved to be costly for the organizations, because the organizations did not have a central authority or someone who owned the data. So that proved to be costly for organizations, because there were a lot of data silos. So there was no one who knew the data in and out, or there was no one who knew how to tag the business data with the technical data. So there was a huge gap. There was a huge void that was created. And and that is where the data stewards came in. So their job was to make sure that they are able to link the business and technical metadata together, and they're able to be responsible for a certain set of data. Because if you look at like customer data, so basically they're responsible for a certain set of data, so which they own. So anyone who needs to find customer data in the organization, the first people that they would reach out is these data stewards. So that gave a lot of structure, and that took away a lot of bandwidth away from the data engineers, where the data engineers could actually focus on their actual work. While the data governance people could actually make sure that they have a lot of the checks and balances to the data. So that is one of the evolution of of the data governance space. And coming to the privacy and security aspect of it, I think it's super important in the age of Gen AI as such, right? So we have so much of advancements done, and there needs to be some kind of a policing done to make sure that they control this technology. So there is no way to control it at this point. So that is where the data governance comes in with a lot of privacy rules and compliance and security and all of these other aspects. So to name a few, basically in the era of generative AI, especially, so I can think about confidentiality. So confidentiality is a big part, because you are giving out your personal information to train the model, and the model is able to learn from this, and it's able to give the same information to anyone else. So that's a huge risk. I'm pretty sure you guys would have heard about the Samsung incident that has happened recently. That was in news. So there was a huge breach of confidentiality, where some of the company critical information was shared, and then the information is available for the public domain to access it. That's a huge risk. So we need to definitely make sure we have some balances around that. And the next thing that I can think about is on the data leakages. So basically, you have your PII information. Basically, you as Mohini, you are giving out your name, your your address, your phone number. And basically, all that information is available for the public forum. So that is very scary, right? I mean, can you just think about it? It's absolutely scary, right? So, I'm pretty sure we don't want to do that. So that is where the techniques like masking and all of these come into the forefront to help to solve some of the challenges. So again, that is where data governance comes to the rescue to help solve some of these problems. And the next thing that I can think about is on the explainability part. So on the explainability, you look at something called as hallucination. So hallucination is a pretty trending topic. So that I think there has been a lot of study, and there has been a lot of cases on hallucination. So basically, just to give a bit of context about what hallucination is. So when you ask a question to a ChatGPT or any language model, it will be able to seamlessly give you an answer, without basically it will give you an answer where you will be forced to believe that this is the exact right answer. That is what hallucination is. It will create such a fake feeling that it is not a fake information. Basically, it is not like validated information. So it will just create some text on the fly, which you will feel, or you will feel convinced that it is actually true. So that is hallucination, and that can be used for the good purpose as well as the bad purpose. And if suppose if hallucination is used for the wrong purposes, it can lead to pretty devastating results. Basically, you can't trust the data. So there is no way that you can take the output of the language model and use it for some genuine purposes. So again, that is where the issue of trust also comes into play, right? So. And coming to the ownership and the responsibility part of it, so there is this thing called copyrights, which is again like a huge an aspect of the entire ecosystem. So basically, the model is trained on so many billion parameters. Basically, the model is learned from so many publicly available domains. And you have no control to make sure that it is not reading from a IP protected material. So there is no way, or there are no checks and balances at this point in time where you can, protect such images. So there has been, like a recent issue, if you have, if you have heard about Getty Images. So they actually sued Stability AI for some of the watermark infringements. So basically what happened was, they had like 12 million data points that they actually used to train the model. And then the watermark was given out as as an AI generated content. So that was actually like protected material. So that came out to the in public forum. And yeah, I mean, again, it is very, very lethal. And you're coming to the final aspect of the bias and ethicality. And I'm pretty sure that bias is a huge aspect, because what you feed into the model is what you will get outside, right? So you feed like limited data, or you feed like biased data, and your model will exactly respond in the same way. So it will give you like skewed results. So I think this is a big aspect. I think I can definitely go on and on about the bias and ethicality part. Because there is so much of talk, and there is so much of consideration that have been done in this space. So now with so much happening, there have been so many issues, there have been so many good things, and there are so many bad things. Now, do we even have a central authority, or do we have a governing body, or do we have a government authority who kind of looks at these rules, and do they have a say in this entire thing, right? So basically, you have to protect your privacy. So that is a huge issue. So that is where the AI Act comes into play. So that has been implemented in the Europe region. I think Europe is the first region to have AI Act as such. So while other countries are trying to do it, I think Europe is the first region to start it. So basically, what this AI Act does is it classifies your AI application into multiple different buckets of risk. So if you have low risk, medium risk, high risk, or unacceptable, and if your AI app is in the unacceptable state, then you will have to fine tune to make sure that you comply to those rules and regulations. Otherwise, you will have to pay fines of 30 million euros or 6% of your global profits, which is huge, which is massive. Any company, I don't think they would be able to pay $30 million in fines. I don't think anyone would like that. So that is where these rules come into play, and that is where data governance plays a huge part. I think that is definitely here to stay. It's going to be a path breaker in the entire ecosystem. And yeah, I think you can see a lot of disruptions. I think you will definitely have to comply to these rules. There is no way. This is not going to be optional. This is going to be absolutely mandatory for every individual, every organization, to make sure that they stay on top of all these rules. So yeah, I think that's a long answer to your short question, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for shedding light on all of these aspects. And definitely now is the high time for data governance to take the front seat. We just cannot afford getting it neglected in this era too. All right. So picking up on the last question from my list, at least, and this goes to both of you. What exactly is the role of data engineering and data governance for a sustainable and safe implementation of AI?
I think data engineering and data governance goes hand in hand. And that's what, with respect to the regulations that Shailesh was talking about. From an engineering standpoint, I think data curation and augmentation becomes very important. Data engineers need to make sure that the data that they're training is diverse and free of bias. I think they need to utilize a lot of unbiasing techniques which are in place. The entire operation, as Shailesh was suggesting, has to be done under an ethical framework sort of thing. So data engineers will have to collaborate with the data governance expert so as to build this framework from an ethical standpoint, from a standard standpoint. So that is, I think, probably the way forward. And obviously, the real-time monitoring that will be very essential to make sure that the AI models that are developed or implemented are sustainable. So these factors, I think, plays a very critical role, and data governance and data engineering should go hand in hand.
Yeah. Probably I would definitely agree to what Ashok said. I think it has to be a collaborative effort of both data engineering and data governance to make sure we build a sustainable solution. And I'm pretty sure that people would have questions around, okay, I'm an organization. I'm pretty much starting off new with GenAI. So basically, where do I start? So what are the things that I need to take into consideration, in order to build my first AI app and launch it to the market? So basically, there are multiple different aspects that we need to take care of. The first one being on the data discovery side. I think that's going to be like the most important and the critical part. So you first, as an organization, you need to make sure that you get your data sorted in the first place. So there's no point of going to an AI-based approach, because if you don't have your data sorted in the first place, there's no way that you will have a successful implementation of AI. So that is where your data discovery comes into place, and you will have to have absolute knowledge about how your data is stored, how your data is cataloged, how your data has been organized. So that is where data cataloging comes into play. And the next one is on the data privacy and security rules. So before the advent of AI, so there are already some state privacy laws that have already been implemented. So if you look at like the US, so there is CCPA, there is CPA, there is CPRA. So there are tons of these state-wise regulations which are already in place. So you will have to make sure that you first comply to those as well. So those are also not going to be optional. So you will definitely have to make sure you comply for it. That is definitely going to be mandatory stuff. And you're coming to the training aspect of the model, or choosing the right data sets. I think that's going to be a big part in the success or failure of the AI implementation. So you choose the right data sets. Basically, you make sure that there is no bias in the data. You choose the right data sets. You try to label your data correctly. You choose the data which you will feel that it will give the right results in the end. And even choosing the model in the first place. That is again like a huge debatable topic. What type of models do you want to choose? There are certain instances where the companies usually lean on some of these language models, or the OpenAI related APIs. But I think I don't think that should be the way forward. Basically, you can go more on a use case by use case basis. If you are just trying to build a small chatbot for your organization, you don't have to have a model which knows like a billion parameters that it has learned from. There's no such need. So you would probably go for an open source model, or probably you would try to build your very simple LLM for your organization. I think many organizations falter in this space. I think that is what we have seen in the past of working with multiple different clients. So I think the funda is to stay lean, and to make sure you choose as simplistic models as possible to make sure that you are building the right tool for your organization. And also you need to make sure that you target the right audience. Basically, you need to have some rules or laws to make sure that they're complying with those. Basically, I can think about the California AADC. Basically, if you're looking to target an age group of 18 or below, basically, if you want to access their location information, or if you want to access their personal information, so you will have to comply to these rules and norms. And there is another act called COPPA, which is like if you want to access information for 13 years and below, so you will have to comply to those regulations as well. Again, choosing the right audience is going to be another big step and a milestone in the successful implementation. And finally, coming to the de-identification techniques. Basically, how do you mask your data? I mean, basically, you are having so much of personal information, PII information, SPII information, and how do you feed all of this to a model and make sure that it is not using it in the wrong way? So that is where techniques like masking and shifting, all these come into play. So you'll have to have a process around how you will handle your data set. So that is where I think it becomes super important for us to choose some of these best practices. So these are not the all the points, but I think it will be good if the organizations start to look at these aspects of the modeling. So yeah, I think those are some of my suggestions, at least from my experience and whatever we have seen working with different clients. And yeah, I think those are our learnings that I definitely want to share. So
thank you so much for sharing that, Shailesh. Definitely for all these regulations that you just talked about, we are at a very primal stage currently, but there's a long way to go.
Absolutely.
And data governance, more than just an application in the enterprises, like a policy or something, has to become a mechanism. It has to become a part of our day-to-day lives. Be it at a global level, a country level, enterprise, or even at an individual level.
You can run, but you can't hide from data governance.
Absolutely.
Data governance would be a cultural change. So that has to be adopted. Yeah. So,
right. Great. All right. So with this, I thank you so much for answering all the questions that I had. But now I'm not the only one who's curious. Obviously, we also have a lot of questions coming from our audience. So let us see what they have to say. Are you ready for those questions?
Yeah, bring it on.
Looking forward to it. Okay. Okay. So looks like we have a couple of them already. I'm just picking a few randomly. The first one, and you guys can decide which question you want to answer. The first one is, what type of jobs will we have in the future of data governance and data engineering, and how do we prepare for it?
Yes, probably I can take that.
Yeah.
So on the data governance side of things, I think there is going to be a lot of demand for a role called data privacy architect. I think there is no such role at this point in time, but I'm pretty sure with the with the latest advancements that is happening, so there will be a need for this role, and this person has to play a syncing role with all the different other people in the entire organization. And he'll have to be a part of all the projects that involve customer and privacy and these kind of things.
Okay.
So that role is going to be a mandatory role for every application or every project that I would think about. The next role that I can think about is prompt engineers. I think they're already prominent. Prompt engineers are already pretty prominent in the market. And basically all they have to do is they'll have to understand how to play around with the prompts to make sure that they get the effective use of the AI. Basically, they'll have to get the best responses out of the AI, and what are the type of questions that you need to key in. So those kind of roles are very interesting. Again, very interesting, and I think these are pretty prominent at this point in time. And probably something that I can think about is on the AI auditor side of things. So you will probably have an AI auditor who will pretty much be looking at the reds and greens of your project, basically like the do's and don'ts. So he will be responsible for figuring out loopholes in the entire application that you build. So those kind of roles can become very prominent. At least these are something that I can think about at this point in time.
All right, people, this information, hope this gets really useful to you. And it just gets me into thinking that we're not too far from the day when we have businesses outsourcing these services to other businesses.
Yeah, probably you can call it as a human as a service. So you can have an AI that would be employing jobs of a human. Basically, you will have a human to do the services. So yeah, I think human as a service. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fancy concept. Yeah.
Yeah, fancy it is actually. Okay, so picking on the next question, and this is more this is pointing to the financial aspect of our topic today. What are the different costs associated to embed GenAI to build new applications?
Yeah, I think I'll take that one. Yeah, sure. So from a cost aspect, I think the major cost would be the infrastructure cost. AI models require large amount of computational power and storage. This means that you will need to invest on high performance hardwares like GPUs, CPUs. It also means that you need to have a very robust and reliable network which communicates between different components. I think that will add to the network cost of the things. Apart from that, the second thing is, I think, the data and training cost. So AI model require large amount of data to train on itself so that it can fine tune the algorithms.
Okay.
This means you'll have to invest heavily on procuring the data and processing the data. Even if you are generating the data on your own, I think using generative AI to be specific, the prompts and response cost tokens.
True. Yeah.
All the large language models are priced differently, but on an average, we can say that it costs around $0.02 per 1,000 tokens.
Yeah.
And one token roughly pays for around 4 English alphabets. So you can imagine the scale. Apart from that, I think once it is implemented, the support and maintenance side of things becomes very important. Maintaining an AI system is very, very specialized skill and skill intensive job. Adding to the jobs that Shailesh suggested, right? I think AI support engineer would be the norm in the future.
Yeah, true.
It can be the case. So I can give an example with respect to the cost part. So there is a company called as Latitude. So they deal with the AI based games. So they use prompts to generate storylines and stuff like that. So the CEO, I think his name is Nick Walton. He in an interview said that the running cost of the model and the payment that they give to AWS servers cost them around $200,000 per month. So you can imagine the expense. So the bottom line is that I think it's an expensive affair, but then we should be specific with respect to the use case that we're implementing. That becomes very important here.
Yeah. And probably you will have some legal costs also associated.
Yeah, I think that is
also model training cost, maybe. I think that is also going to be an overhead.
Yeah, so model training cost in terms of how much you process. So that, yeah, that is going to be there. Since it is computing huge amount of data, I think it is going to be expensive.
Yeah, so it's going to be an expensive affair, people. Okay, so picking on the next question, how do we handle bias in AI applications? And what steps do we need to take to remove bias?
Okay, I think AI model does not know what it's training on. So I'll still follow, I think Shailesh brought this point up. So I'll follow the garbage in, garbage out sort of a system in place. The AI model is, and the decision, that prediction that AI model makes is only as good as the data on which it is trained or the input that you're giving. So with this context, I think data engineers and data scientists need to evaluate the data and make sure that the data is, representation of data is correct and almost real time in the sense. Heterogeneous data set is the way forward. I think that's an easy bet. But emphasize on practice of responsible data generation becomes very, very important. I think you also happen to mention about explainable AI or interpretable AI. That in this we can actually try to understand and see how the decision making happens at the model level. Although it will not help you eliminate the bias completely, but at least it can help you identify the root cause of the bias. And that is where the practice of responsible data set generation comes into place. One effective way is to deal with synthetic data. I mean, deal with it using synthetic data. The real-time data itself is not very unbiased. I think the current models that we're running, it has shown multiple results. And we have many use cases that the current data that we have, actual data that we have, is not very biased. I think so. Synthetic data can help you create the data that you want. And that will enable you to create a data set, which is almost unbiased. So that will help us. And I think we were emphasizing on the policy part, the standards part, right? The AI Act, I think that's a good starting point. Under the tutelage of, under the framework, I think the operations that we are going to do, or every action from curation to labeling and whatnot, all these things under these policies will definitely reduce the number of amount of bias that the model is generating. And last but not least, I think the very basic rigorous testing before and after model implementation. So there is kind of a continuous loop of learning in general. So you test what is happening before deployment. After deployment, you analyze what is the decision that is made. So this becomes an iterative loop, and you learn from it. That are the 4 steps that I can think of. 2 steps that I can think of.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for answering that in so much details, Ashok. While we have a lot of questions popping up from our audience, we can pick a last one right now. But don't worry, we'll have our experts answer to all of your questions and have them sent to you over an email. So don't worry about it. The last one that we have for you from audience is, how does the organization start off with the data governance, if not already started on it?
Okay. I think that's a very broad question per se. So I think data governance, I think you have a structure now, at least, now you exactly know what aspects or what different entities fall under data governance. So basically you have, data curation, basically you have data quality, you have data cataloging, you have data lineaging. So you know that these aspects fall into this bucket. And if you have not started on this, I think, the first point would be data discovery. First, I think first the organization need to understand the data. So just try to understand, where your data is located. How do you make sure that you have an entire lineage built on top of it? So you have to understand, who owns the data. Basically, start assigning ownership to the data set that you currently have. So that at least, there is some point of contact. Suppose if you want to get some information out of it, so you at least you have a point of contact to start off with. So that will be the first step. And again, to create a separate organization, again, it would require a lot of intensive spending from the senior leadership. So you have to probably create a separate org itself, and then you will have to probably start filling up all the different layers. So starting from a chief governance officer all the way to a to a data steward basically. So you will have to filling up all these different layers, and you will have to make sure that you assign the ownership and not just give everything to a data engineer. I don't think that would be fair. I think it would be good if we can now actually take away some of the workload that the data engineers are currently doing. While the data engineers can focus on the right ingestion and making sure that the data is available, and the data stewards add some value on top of it. So that is where I think data governance will definitely help ease some of these operations.
Okay.
And plus, if you add the privacy and security aspect on top of it, I think that's going to be even more powerful. So yeah, I think that's how you start building your organization. I think it's not a very overnight process. I think building a data governance org, it will take easily up to 6 months to 1 year. I think that's a tedious process. So you'll first have to make sure what assets do you currently own, and how do you transfer the ownership. So that's a huge journey. Basically, that's a transformation. Basically, it's a business transformation for any organization. So it does not happen overnight. So you'll have to make sure that you do comply and you stay on top of the things, and make sure you slowly start delegating some of these things, and you start with a small POC, and then you can start building this entire charter or a different org altogether. So yeah, I think that's a journey. I think that will have to go together.
Absolutely.
I think there's a cultural journey that everybody has to take together. Right?
True.
That is
Absolutely. And all the efforts that we are going to put towards it will be fruitful. There's no doubt on that. Well, with this, I thank you so much. Thank you, both of you, for finding time out and answering all the questions that we had and our audience had for you today. And I'll also like to thank you, thanks to the audience for being so patient and also being a lovely audience. You have sent a lot of questions to us. And as a gift, we are going to send out exclusive white paper to you on generative AI, which will be curated specially for you from FaxPen. And with this, I'd say that stay tuned, because we'll be back again with more topics, with more sessions on the trends in generative AI and data analytics world. Until then, we'll say take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being such a patient audience.